Sometimes you and I think that doctrines don't matter, that it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe in Jesus. And there's a lot of talk today about, we shouldn't be too strong on our doctrines and challenging people about doctrines. Well, I'm sorry, I don't believe in that. And one of the reasons I don't believe in that is when you look at the scriptures carefully, you see the effect of wrong doctrines. Now, let me walk you through two of those effects today. The first effect of wrong doctrines is it affects our perception of the events going on around us. It causes us to understand and interpret the events that surround us in a wrong way. John chapter 9, verse 16. Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath." Others said, "How could such an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs?" So there was deep division of opinion among them. Now, we've talked many times about the fact that the Pharisees had a wrong doctrine about working on the Sabbath. Jesus corrected them on many occasions. He said, "Hey, you help a donkey out of the ditch. Shouldn't I heal a child of God on the Sabbath?" He says in Matthew chapter 12, verse 5, the priests work on the Sabbath. They offer the sacrifices on the Sabbath. The priests work on the Sabbath. And Jesus was high priest. He was healing people on the Sabbath. So he tried to reason with them. He tried to teach them, but they would not give up their wrong doctrine. And because they would not give up that wrong doctrine, they misjudged the reality of Jesus, the Messiah. They made wrong decisions. They interpreted the things that they saw with their eyes wrongly because of wrong doctrines. Now, I've watched people misjudge miracles. I've watched people misjudge revival. I've watched people misjudge healings, all because of wrong doctrines. I've watched churches destroy good pastors because of wrong doctrines. I've watched churches laud and love and mwah, 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 kiss, kiss, love, love bad pastors who are living in sin because of wrong doctrines. So you have to understand your doctrines affect how you think. Your doctrines affect how you perceive everything going on around you and how you understand spiritual things and spiritual events, as well as natural things and natural events. So it's important that we study the scripture and have good doctrines. The second effect of wrong doctrines is it gives people bad attitudes toward people, toward innocent people. Now, I want you to again notice in John chapter 9, verses 1 to 3. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, "Why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins?" Now, the reason they would ask this is this was a common doctrine taught in the synagogues in their day. That if someone was born blind, either they sinned or their parents sinned. And the big theological discussion was who sinned, the parents or the child. There was that was the doctrine. It was either the parents or the child. So the disciples asked Jesus to solve this doctrinal controversy for them. And Jesus said, it's not because of his sins or his parents' sins, verse 3. This happens so that the power of God could be seen in him. Now later, this man is standing before the Pharisees in verse 34. And he said, "You were born a total sinner, and you're trying to teach us." And they threw him out of the synagogue. They couldn't comprehend that this man had done nothing wrong and his parents had done nothing wrong. They used their doctrine, the rationalization and logic of their doctrine, to fight a man who had just received a great miracle. Rather than be happy a blind man can see again, they fought this man because Jesus had healed him on the Sabbath and because he had been born blind. He didn't fit into their little doctrinal cookie cutter thoughts. And you know what? Jesus went to look for him. Now, sometimes you and I see people that have been hurt by false doctrines, hurt by wrong doctrines. And I want you to notice what Jesus did with this man. In verse 35, when Jesus heard what has happened, he found the man and asked him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He found the man and worked on the man's salvation. Many times in my life, I see people hurt by wrong doctrines. And I just want to follow the illustration of Jesus. I go sit down and talk with the person and I work on their salvation. I don't get involved in the controversy. I work on their salvation.